Video game projects get cancelled all the time, whether at very early stages of production before the public has even heard about the project, or way later after the game's announcement and when months, if not years amounts of work, time and money was put into the project. Today I'm gonna talk about a cancelled point-and-click adventure game like that named Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans. Blizzard Entertainment's own attempt to enter the adventure game market in the late 90s. If you bought and played Blizzard games around that time, you might have heard of this title as Blizzard was advertising it quite heavily. Maybe even your boxed copy of StarCraft included a flyer advertising Warcraft Adventures. And it was quite anticipated by both the public and the press, with journalists writing articles highlighting the game. Some going as far as to say Blizzard could rival LucasArts Adventures. I am a big Warcraft fan myself, having played Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft since the Burning Crusade, so that's another reason I really wanted to play this game and give my thoughts on it. So, what happened? Why was the game cancelled? Would it have been any good if it was released? My name is Siperos and these are my thoughts on Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans. Before we start to talk about the game itself, let's go briefly through its development history. The project of Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans, was conceived in late 1996, when Blizzard's sister company Capital Multimedia, both being owned by Davidson and Associates at the time, suggested that Warcraft license might be suited to an adventure game. Something Blizzard had wanted to do for several years, growing tired of the real-time strategy genre during that period. Blizzard wanted to branch out beyond strategy games and explore the Warcraft setting in various video game genres, and graphic point-and-click adventure game genre seemed perfect for deeper storytelling and world exploration. However, the game was not being done in-house at Blizzard due to the lack of the capacity needed to create the art assets for such a game, and thus they were introduced to a now defunct Russian-American game development and animation studio, Animation Magic, that was purchased by Capitol in 1995 and was based in Boston and St. Petersburg in Russia. The studio is perhaps best known for the atrocious The Legend of Zelda CDI games released a few years earlier in 1993.
You dare bring light to my lair? You must die!
So we are totally in good hands here. Blizzard started co-developing the game with Animation Magic by providing them concept art of the characters. The story script presumably by Chris Metzen, telling them what the Warcraft universe is like and what they wanted the gameplay to be like, using mostly LucasArts adventure games, particularly their 1995 titles, The Dig and Full Throttle, as references when it came to gameplay, minus the action sequences of the latter and dark humor they were after. The game was originally supposed to come out in late 1997, but due to Blizzard not being happy with the game's quality, especially when it was directly competing with LucasArts' visually superior The Curse of Monkey Island, they decided to delay the release and hire game designer Steve Meretzky to revise the project in February 1998. The plan was to edit and improve the game with minimal changes to its art to avoid heavy increases in budget and development time. Warcraft Adventures was practically done with some minor software bugs and few voice lines missing, and deadline and budget restrictions prevented a major redesign. Meretzky's plan to improve and update the game went largely unused, and eventually Blizzard determined that its implementation would lead to excessive delays and decided to cancel the project instead in May 1998, for not meeting Blizzard's high-quality standards after about 18 months of work. Gameplay footage of the cancelled game was later leaked via a video on YouTube in 2010, and a from beginning to end long play of the game was uploaded in 2014, but without cutscenes. Completely playable game with the cutscenes was leaked online in 2016, most likely by former Russian Animation Magic employees. Now to the actual game. What is the story about? Blizzard wanted to tell the story of Lord of the Clans from Orcs' perspective, who were portrayed as the bad guys in the first two Warcraft RTS games. This time Blizzard sought to humanize and deepen the portrayal of the Orc race in the eyes of players. The story takes place years after the Second War, or Warcraft 2 Beyond the Dark Portal, and tells the story of an orc named Troll, whom every Warcraft fan should know since he is one of the most important lore figures. Former war chief of the Horde, the World Shaman, and one of the main characters and hero units in Warcraft 3, to which the story of this title was supposed to build up to, while introducing us to Troll and his origins. At the beginning we see Troll's parents being murdered by two traitorous orc brothers, while he was still a baby and was left alive, only to be found by cruel and cunning Blackmore, a human lieutenant, head of the orc internment camps, and master of Durnhold Keep, who decided to take the little orcling with him. Troll grows up as a slave under Blackmore's tutelage, learning the skills of a warrior, even to read and write, and was trained as a gladiator, without ever meeting another orc. Blackmore's plan was to raise Troll into a general who would lead an army made of imprisoned orcs while staying completely loyal to him. That plan never came to fruition, however, as one day Troll was ordered to kill another orc, which he refused to do, and even attacked Blackmore, only to be overpowered by the guards and taken to a cell, waiting for his execution scheduled for the very next morning. Troll of course escapes and is off to look for other free orcs, more specifically Grom Hellscream, chieftain of the Warsong clan wanted by the Alliance, and learn about his own origins. He learns that he is the son of Durotan, former chieftain of the Frostwolf clan, and becomes not only the new chieftain of his own clan, but also the new warchief of the unified Free Orcish clans, and leads the Horde to free the rest of their brethren from the internment camps, while also taking his revenge on Blackmore and the murderers of his parents. Now that is a very cool and even deep story, especially for a point-and-click adventure game. We play as an orc for one, and I like playing as races other than humans in high fantasy settings. It's a story about breaking free from shackles of slavery, learning where you come from, what your destiny is, which is leading and redeeming the Orcish Horde as the new war chief, take your revenge on those who have wronged you, and years later to become the Green Jesus. Sorry, I couldn't resist. They kinda ruined Troll for me in Cataclysm. Troll is one of my favorite characters from Warcraft lore, so how is he in Warcraft Adventures, voiced by Clancy Brown?
Loyal to the end, huh? You'd better get going. Things are gonna get a little hot around here pretty soon. The clans are waiting to storm the prison, and I don't want you and your Zeppelin getting caught in the middle. Thanks for your help, Gaslow. Now take off!
While I wouldn't go as far as to say that he is like in Warcraft 3 or early World of Warcraft, a wise leader who wants only the best for his people and the Horde, helps his allies, and wants peace, but if something threatens the Horde, he won't hesitate to go to war. I can see this younger Troll becoming such a great warchief you want to follow. Being raised and educated by humans, never seen another one of his kind before breaking out of the keep, Troll naturally is not your typical orc who tries to solve all his problems with brute force, but uses his wits and intelligence instead to overcome obstacles. Although not all of his ideas are bright. God damn it, Troll. Our future warchief, ladies and gentlemen. Clancy Brown also does good job voicing him. While Chris Metzen will always be the voice of Troll.
Warrior, has there been any word from Grom Hellscream? He and the Warsong clan were supposed to have been here by now.
I can imagine Troll sounding like this during his younger years as a growing young adult, learning about the world, his people and their customs, traditions, and even learns magic, which I get to in a moment. The only criticism that I have about our protagonist is that he looks too generic. Overall, I do like Troll in Warcraft Adventures. If you are a Warcraft fan and a lore nerd, you are definitely going to recognize many of the characters you run into in the game. Orcs like Grom Hellscream, Trekthar, and Orgrim Doomhammer, and other characters like Gaslow, Zul'jin, Alexstrasza, and even frickin' Deathwing. I especially like Doomhammer, voiced by Peter Cullen.
In a blood oath, we three swore our allegiance to one another and to the Horde. We vowed to advance the Horde's destiny with fearlessness and honor.
And Grom Hellscream, whose voice actor I don't know unfortunately, because not all the involved voice actors are known, and the leaked pre-release version doesn't have end credits.
I will allow it no longer. The Horde will be a force of war once again, or I will die making it so.
The voice acting in general is okay with some decent performances, especially from the orcs.
We don't want to sing. There's nothing left to drink.
And some not so good.
The prisoner has escaped the snaggle bag. I can't believe it. I wove that snaggle bag myself, using only the most durable strands of elven yarn.
Anyway, Hellscream and Doomhammer are easily the most badass characters in the game, in my opinion. Unfortunately, they don't really do anything. You don't even get to have much. Well, actually, you don't get to have any real conversation with dialogue options with them, which is a great shame. They just appear in one or two cutscenes, tell you what you must do or where to go next, and that's it. And a couple characters' potential was totally wasted. The worst offender being Zul'jin, the warlord of the Amani tribe, an extra unit in Warcraft 2, and even got his own raid in World of Warcraft The Burning Crusade. In Warcraft Adventures, he is reduced to a mere shopkeeper in an orc reservation. Yeah, I don't think they did him justice. The second one being Deathwing. You know, the big dragon who has a whole WoW expansion dedicated to him and caused a great cataclysm. Well, in Warcraft Adventures he smokes a hookah in his lair in Blackrock Mountain. He's so chill. It's actually amusing. But I don't think they treated him right here either, because he dies in the game after first swallowing Troll into his stomach, who then messes around with his organs inside so that the next time he tries to breathe fire on Troll, his head blows up, which Troll takes to Alexstrasza as proof of defeating the Black Dragon in exchange for the Dragon Queen's assistance against Blackmoor's forces. Also interestingly, in this game Deathwing is Alexstrasza's rebellious son, which he is not in canon. Most of my enjoyment came from seeing how Blizzard imagined some of these important lore figures and the world of Azeroth at the time. Of course you find references to the lore of the past RTS games, characters, and even get to see the insides of structures like the Griffin Aviary with all the griffins inside it, and apparently female dwarves used to have beards back then, and Temple of the Damned where you produced Death Knight units in Warcraft 2. You even get to confront one. That's sick. Sick as in cool. When it comes to graphics, the game looks okay. And that was the problem with it in 97 and 98. The game looks just mediocre in general, and inferior compared to the competition. The 2D backgrounds look nice admittedly, but not very interesting. And the interactable 2D characters and objects stand out a little too much. Especially this scene here with this abomination sticking out from the background like a sore thumb looks ugly as hell. And the first cutscenes didn't look or sound any better.
Finish him, Thrall.
I have defeated him. Killing him is senseless.
So, really? I don't care about your opinion. I've told you to kill it, you filthy animal. Now, finish it.
But to Animation Magic's credit, they redid the cutscenes, most likely when Meretsky came in to revise the game, and I really like them.
22 years have passed since Blackmoor found the young Orkling. 3 great wars between the Human Alliance and the Orcish invaders have laid waste to the once proud realms of Azeroth.
A huge improvement from the animation in their Zelda games. Sure, they don't look amazing or anything, even in late 90s standards, but they do remind me of the 80s cartoons and made me wish that there actually was a TV cartoon series based in Warcraft universe. The puzzle design is another thing that is holding the game down. It's for the most part very uninspiring, unimaginative and by the books design. If you have played many adventure games, especially from the 90s, you are bound to notice many similar puzzles from other games. Pushina Process, who is a lot more knowledgeable about adventure games than I am, also made a video about Warcraft Adventures, and in her video she mentions how the puzzle where you have to use a mirror to reflect electricity or laser has been used in like over a dozen other adventure games before Warcraft Adventures. Naturally, I recommend that you go and check out her video as well. The link is in the description. So you could say that Blizzard, who I assume designed the puzzles, took too many notes from other games. They even used the same pie menu interface from LucasArts Full Throttle to perform different actions while having a separate inventory for items to track from, which I think was a good thing to copy at least. That being said, there is one element in their puzzle design that I really like in Warcraft Adventures. And that is the spells that you'll use in the game. About halfway through the game you get magical scrolls from Drekthar that you must use to overcome obstacles. In order to cast a spell, you must first find the required region to activate the scroll and then find the right place to use it. For example, for the Bone Bridge spell, you need to find a bone. Simple enough. The region for the Phantom Image spell is a little trickier, although not by much. My favorite is the Shapeshift spell that we must use to shapeshift into a dwarf so we can enter the dwarf's Griffin Aviary. Really like the idea of learning spells. Although I think casting a Bridge of Bone is more for necromancers or death knights than shamans, but that's just me being nitpicky. Another aspect of the game that I don't think Blizzard/Animation Magic really nailed was the game's tone and humor. Blizzard advertised the game as a dark comedy, but I think this is where Blizzard and Animation Magic had a bit of a disconnect because I don't see it. The tone seems to be all over the place. In one scene, Troll is snowboarding down a mountain yelling,
"Whoa, I can see my house!"
which is a very bad and a cringe joke that doesn't even make sense, and in the very next scene we find a bleeding wolf carcass with blood everywhere. The carcass is later being devoured by a couple of vultures, and you need to pick up the wolf's bladder to use for a puzzle. The jokes for the most part are just bad, even immature. Not only is there a lame fart joke, but also a
It's taking all my willpower not to choke the chicken.
Masturbation joke. Because adult humor. Despite all the game's obvious flaws, I enjoyed my time playing Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans. I would even go as far as to say it's one of my favorite point-and-click adventure games. But I admit that it's purely because I'm a Warcraft fan. And I would recommend other Warcraft fans to give this a go, just for fun, for the references, and compare its story to the canon, if you got the time and patience to get the game working, and you don't mind saving often in case of occasional glitches and potential crashes. After playing through the game, I can definitely see why Blizzard decided to cancel it. It's impossible to say how well or badly the game would have done if it came out, but I think it's safe to say it wouldn't have done well. All odds were against it. Not only was the game mediocre at best and inferior in pretty much every aspect compared to LucasArts' 1997's The Curse of Monkey Island, for example, the gaming industry was also moving towards 3D technology at the time, with LucasArts' first 3D adventure game, Grim Fandango, announced and released the next year in 1998. With all those titles and more coming out, I don't think Warcraft Adventures could have competed. And the point-and-click adventure game genre dying out in the late 90s certainly wouldn't have helped the sales either. Especially when even LucasArts' titles, while critically acclaimed, were underperforming in the market. Maybe if the game was released in the mid-90s like in 95 or 96 at latest, it might have stood a chance and even be successful. Despite the game's cancellation, Blizzard still wanted to tell Thrall's origin story, so they hired Christie Golden to write a Warcraft novel of it, titled Lord of the Clans, which I have not read, but I know it's basically the same story but without flying pigs, shopkeeper Zul'jin, hookah smoking Deathwing, or trips to his stomach. While I think that cancelling the game was understandable, and I'm even glad that its story didn't become canon, I can't help but be a little sad that it wasn't released. Because Blizzard's team envisioned Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans, as the first game in a possible series of story-based Warcraft spin-offs in the graphic point-and-click adventure genre. If Lord of the Clans was released, and even successful, we might have gotten more adventure games set in Warcraft universe by Blizzard. I would have loved to see that. Hell, I still want to. Warcraft setting has lots of characters and stories to tell. But considering what Blizzard Entertainment has become over the last 2 decades, I doubt it's going to happen. Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans cancellation reminds me what Blizzard used to be like. High standards they set for themselves as both developers and gamers themselves, and most of all the satisfaction of their fans and customers were so important to them that instead of releasing a mediocre game and get back at least some of the money invested in it, they decided not to and just eat their losses. They only released games when they were done and polished. Oh, how times have changed. And there you go, folks. Those were my thoughts on Warcraft Adventures, Lord of the Clans. What are your thoughts on the game? Let me know in the comments and thanks for watching.